Good afternoon. My name is Sami Rahamim, S-A-M-I-R-A-H-A-M-I-M. I'm Director of Communications and Community Affairs for JCRC, Jewish Community Relations Council, Minnesota and the Dakotas. And I graduated from the University of Minnesota in 2018 and was an active student leader here at Hillel during my time as a student. You just heard some true and difficult stories from Jewish students. These protests are fostering a climate of hatred, division, and fear. Every person you see up here wishes the war in Gaza was never necessary. We wish Hamas would have returned our hostages and would have surrendered from power a long time ago. We agonize for the loss of innocent lives in Gaza and wish to see the humanitarian crisis end immediately. We yearn for a day when Israelis and Palestinians each have their needs of peace, justice, dignity, and security met. But the ideas animating these campus protests are not about peace and reconciliation for Israelis and Palestinians. Each of these protests begins with the infamous chant, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." This chant means the destruction of Israel. Why do we think that? Because Hamas tells us that is exactly what they mean.
فلسطين من نهرها إلى بحرها من شمالها إلى جنوبها أرضنا وحقنا ووطننا لا تنازل ولا تفريط بأي شبر أو جزء منها. لا يمكن أن نعترف بشرعية احتلال إسرائيل لها، لا شرعية للاحتلال، وبالتالي لا شرعية لإسرائيل.
We call this press conference because we are appalled that some in the local and national media are covering the demonstrations on this and other campuses as anti-war or calling for peace. How do you square that with the fact that these protests are using the same language and imagery that we would see at a Hamas rally? We're going to look at some of the images and messages that have been spread on campus this week alone. This is a photo from appeared in the Star Tribune this week from the protest on Tuesday. The sign says, "Intifada is revolution, is armed struggle, glory to the resistance." Few of the students have already mentioned this word, intifada. But just to be clear, what does this word mean? This word brings up memories of a Palestinian terror campaign that killed roughly 1,000 Israeli civilians in the early 2000s, mainly in suicide bombings, attacks on public transportation, in cafes, at a Passover Seder. October 7 was the deadliest and darkest day for Jews since the Holocaust. Israeli civilians were murdered, raped, kidnapped from their homes. Over 130 are still being held underground by Hamas terrorists. Intifada is the same thing as October 7, just over a period of years instead of all packed into one day. This is what armed struggle looks like to the Palestinians who rule Gaza. Glory to the resistance. Hamas is actually an acronym. It stands for, in translation, Islamic Resistance Movement. Glory to the resistance means glory to Hamas. This is a pro-terror message. Why is the media not taking this seriously? There's been lots of imagery on the campus since October 7, this week, glorifying the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the PFLP, designated as a terrorist organization by the US, Canada, Japan, other countries. Photo here advertising a Marxist-Leninist perspective on campus in Palestine, victory to the resistance. Layla Khalid, infamous airplane hijacker in 1969 and 70, glorified by the students as a hero. SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine, Instagram, they are celebrating this event, chalking of the terrorists on the campus, the flag of a terror organization flying in front of Kaufman Union. Al-Qassam brigades make us proud. Al-Qassam is the military wing of Hamas. This is also a message glorifying terrorists. Zionists, F off. A Zionist is simply a person who believes Israel has a right to exist. Through a variety of polls, we can extrapolate that at least 85% of American Jews identify as Zionists. This message speaks for itself. Al-Aqsa flood is what Hamas calls their October 7 massacre of Jews, glorified in chalk on the U of M campus. These flyers have been all over Minneapolis. Nothing but hate for Israel and Zionism. From Gaza to the Americas, decolonization means attack. It is time to take this rhetoric seriously and stop reporting it as a pro-peace message. And finally, death to America. As noted in our press statement, the Supreme Leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran has voiced support for the student protests sweeping the country. So we see that symbiosis here as well, given that death to America is a popular slogan among supporters of the Iranian regime. In conclusion, the ideas animating these protests are built on an extreme, maximalist vision to destroy Israel, the world's only Jewish state. We are asking you to see the connection between this rhetoric and the fact that Jewish students make up 1% of the undergraduate student body, but as reported in the Star Tribune, account for 1 in 3 of all bias incidents at the university this year. Anti-Jewish incidents, those are. We call on the media to ask these protesters, question them. What do they mean when they chant, resistance is justified when people are occupied? Do they believe that the Israeli communities invaded on October 7, which are inside Israel's sovereign territory, not the disputed West Bank, but inside Israel's sovereign territory, do they believe those families are occupiers of Palestinian land? Does that mean that murder, rape, and kidnapping is, as they say, justified? If they answer yes, will you still call them anti-war and pro-peace? If they answer no, will you ask them, well, what does glory to the resistance actually mean? If it's not glory to Hamas, and they truly are anti-war, why is all of their ire directed at Israel? Not a word toward Hamas, who could end the war, end the suffering, end the humanitarian crisis tomorrow, today, by releasing the hostages. Ask these questions. There is something deeply rotten in this movement. And it's time for journalists to start asking the hard questions and tell the full story of what these anti-peace, pro-terror protests are really about. Thank you.